Now, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is in China to reset relations as he aims to boost trade and investment with the world's second largest economy. Starmer has vowed to bring back benefits to the UK in meetings with President Xi Jinping and Premier Qiang. It's the first visit by a British Prime Minister there in 8 years. Starmer is the latest Western leader to seek closer trade with China as many pivot away from the US. And for more on this, I'm joined by Clifford Coonan in the studio from DW Business. He is a long-time China correspondent. Good to see you, Cliff. So this is the first visit by a British Prime Minister since 2018. Tell us, first of all, what Starmer's priorities are on this trip.
Well, he needs to boost trade with China. He needs to get more investment from China. The UK economy is struggling, and it's struggling in many ways. It's looking for partners, and China is there. We've had a lot of meetings with Macron. The French President Macron has been there. Friedrich Merz is going there next month from Germany, the German Chancellor. So he's the latest in a string of leaders. And at the moment, there's a lot of people looking for a reset in their China relations because they're unsure about relations with the US because they're become a lot less stable than they were under previous administrations. And so that's his main priorities are to do this. And he also has some sort of housekeeping matters to do. They've just opened a huge Chinese embassy in London, which has been heavily criticized. That's right, it's been heavily criticized. The British embassy in Beijing is pretty small, and I think he's looking for embassy reciprocity, that he gets a similar sized embassy there as well. So he's got a busy schedule.
And let's talk about trade, because China sold more goods overseas last year than it imported, in fact, more than $1 trillion more. That's a lot of money. What does the UK then have to offer China?
Well, this is the big question. I mean, there are a couple of things. Big companies like HSBC are there, which is a British company. Airbus, which makes its aircraft engines, is also trying to sell. They're also on the delegation. You've got 60 business leaders there. But a lot of them are representing bigger companies. And the problem is that China is exporting so much because its goods are cheaper. And a lot of countries are now anxious that their industrial bases could be destroyed by cheap Chinese goods flooding in. And the UK, which has already seen quite a lot of damage to its industrial base, a lot of what it's offering now is services, but it's in a weakened position. So the question is, what does the UK have to offer when clearly China is much more focused on what it can send out than what Britain can offer it in return?
You mentioned the US before. We're going to have to talk about President Trump here. He recently threatened Canada, didn't he, with 100% tariffs for holding trade talks with Beijing. So given that, how does the UK think that it can strengthen ties with China without triggering a sort of a similar retaliatory response from the US, from Donald Trump?
Well, Keir Starmer is having to do the same sort of juggling act or balancing act that other leaders have done. As we've mentioned, Mark Carney, Canada getting threatened with these tariffs. In recent months, people have noticed that Trump uses tariffs as a threat quite a lot, but he's only carrying out about 1 in 4 of these threats. So I suppose that what they're trying to think, because a lot of this is supposition, because no one can tell what's going on in Donald Trump's mind. And I suppose that the UK is banking on the fact that they probably won't go ahead with this, that they will be able to come up with some kind of agreement with the US, or there will be some other kind of trade-off going on.
So positive thinking.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about whether there is a contradiction in the fact that the UK is seeking closer ties with China, with Beijing. At the same time, it is committing to closer ties to the AUKUS security pact. Now, that is designed to counter China's influence in the Indo-Pacific. Is one going against the other?
It is in some ways, because China doesn't like these security pacts, particularly with the UK and the US being out of what it considers its sphere of influence in the Indo-Pacific. Britain, for example, is supplying nuclear submarines to Australia, and it's also they have got quite strong security links. At the same time, other countries within the AUKUS group, so Australia, UK and the US, are also building ties. Australia's is also looking for a reset of ties with China at the moment. So in some ways, security has kind of taken a back seat. So where this is going to get interesting is at what point will the US say that these trade will have to take a backseat to security. But then again, the US is also kind of playing a double game. It has imposed these tariffs on China, but Trump regularly talks about what respect he has for Xi Jinping and how he wants to have excellent relations with China. So basically confusion reigns as far as security in the Indo-Pacific region is concerned and the UK's role in that.
What about, dare I mention, human rights? Are they going to be brought up at this meeting at all, or will Starmer turn a blind eye?
I mean, it used to be that every time a Western leader went to China, this would be the first question, and now it's just gone so far down the agenda. The Hong Kong activist Jimmy Lai is there. He's in prison. He's a British citizen. There's a lot of people asking, will Starmer try and intervene? Starmer has said he'll be clear-eyed about the UK's role on this issue, and he's promised to keep this in mind. But at the same time, I just think with all of these leaders arriving in China now, human rights just doesn't seem that high on the agenda anymore.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much. Clifford Coonan from DW Business. Thank you.